thank you so much for joining. Happy to see some new faces and names I recognize as well. My name is Elissa Teles Munoz, and I'm the K-12 Programming Coordinator for Climate Mental Health Network. And I'll be facilitating today's conversation with Bonita and Kate. So I'd like to give you both a chance to introduce yourselves. So Bonita, why don't you start?
Thank you. So my name is Bonita Eloise Ford, and I am the Gen Z program lead for Climate Mental Health Network. I'm also the author of a book called Embers of Hope, Embracing Life in an Age of Ecological Destruction and Climate Chaos. This is my book. And I have a new book coming out in 2027 that I'm in the process of writing right now. It's called Climate Care. The new book is a nonfiction book for middle graders about living with our climate emotions and taking action. And so I'm just really excited to be here with Kate this evening. I've been spending lots of time with your book over the last few weeks, few months, Kate, and so I'm just delighted to have this opportunity to dive in together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's really delightful to be here with Bonita, whose book I really loved, and I'll maybe say a little bit more about why I loved it as we go along. I also wrote a book. It's this, Lessons from the Climate Anxiety Counseling Booth. Aw, yay.
It's so good.
Thank you. Well, it happened because I built a climate anxiety counseling booth to listen to people's climate anxieties and other anxieties. And I did that for about 10 years. I still do it a little less frequently, but every now and again. And yeah, I started it because people, including me, were having trouble talking about climate change and how they felt about it, and also what the feelings that they were feeling meant, about what they should do about it. And so I started trying to figure that out. And I wish I would have had Bonita's book sooner. I think it might have helped.
So, along those lines, if you could tell us from, the both of you, what the key message in your book is and what the takeaway is, for the folks here who haven't had the chance to pick up your book.
Would you like to start, Kate?
Sure. I would say that the key takeaway is that what you're feeling in response to climate change is a message for you about what you can and should do. It's not the only message. There's lots of other people and places to listen to about it. But that your path to caring and purposeful action in the world that we live in now is waiting for you, and that you can find a way along that path.
Bonita,
what about you?
So when I think about the state of the world, and I think about this new study that CMHN has been promoting this week that was published just in the last few days in The Lancet, with a stat of 85% of youth in the States are feeling distressed about the climate, are worried about their futures, are worried about their lives. And when I think about that, and when I spend time on social media, when I look at the news, and I consider, I was outside today in a tank top. It's October, it's late October, and I'm spending time reading about and learning about multiple genocides in the world. And all of that just makes me, I just feel so heavy in my heart around all of that. And for me, I think one of the big takeaways that I hope that readers will hold in their hearts as they're, reading through and working through Embers, and also through Kate's amazing book, Lessons from the Climate Anxiety Counseling Booth. For me, it's just this real balance of, or trying to find a balance between our grief, our despair, our anxiety, as well as actively cultivating a sense of hope. And for me, that's so much about, it's about really being like wanting to show up in my life and in the world with an open heart and just with a real sense of presence, and 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 also wanting to be able to engage in my communities in a meaningful, in a life-sustaining way. And so for me, I need space for both of those experiences, and I really try and invite myself. I think it's actually I think it's more natural for me to fall into my despair and into my climate anxiety. And Kate, if I'd stumbled upon your climate anxiety booth in a farmer's market somewhere, I think I would have just, come up to you and hugged you and cried. Like, I think just having spaces to connect with people around this for me is so deeply important. And it's easy for me to fall into that hole and get stuck in that hole. And so for me, it's a really active practice of trying to create hope and joy in my life so that I can continue this very important work that I'm engaged in, that all of us are engaged in.
It's funny that you say that. If I could say real quick, because I feel like in the beginning, I had the opposite problem. Like, I wanted to fix it. I wanted the feeling to go away. I hated it. It sucked. Everybody else was like, who talked with me was like also like having a bad time. And sometimes they were having a bad time because of things that were happening in their material lives, sometimes me in their kind of emotional or anticipatory lives. And I feel like one of the things that I value about your book is that it makes room for like the deepest, darkest responses to the deep and dark things that are happening and have been happening, and the kind of fallout, the darkest and most sad and parts of the histories that we're part of that have produced this moment also. And so it's been good for me, I think, to read your book and kind of reconnect with like these, these feelings that I do not like and that people who talk to me do not like. They're here for a reason. They belong here.
In a similar vein, Bonita, what stood out to you from Kate's book?
Oh, so many things. I was taking notes this afternoon. It was kind of hard to boil it down. So, Kate, I'm actually going to see if I can find. I've got a whole bunch of little sticky notes throughout your book. I loved the way that you talk about uncertainty and possibility. That's just, I'm going to see if I can find that passage. And there's actually a couple of passages that you wrote about that really jumped out at me. And I love, there was a story also that, actually, I did find the passage. So from Kate's wonderful book, which I've been carrying around to coffee shops and parks all summer and fall. So we don't get anxious about outcomes that we know for sure. We might dread them or resent them or be numb to them, but anxiety means uncertainty. And uncertainty, while it's uncomfortable and can be frightening, means possibility. That gives me goosebumps. I'm going to read that again. Anxiety means uncertainty, and uncertainty, while it's uncomfortable and can be frightening, means possibility. It's so simple and so powerful. It just, for me, that really opens this door of, because I think just the kind of person I am, I find it so easy to get lost in the unknown and into spiraling kind of in my what ifs and in the doubts. And I love how you reframe uncertainty to just to gently open that door of, well, if we don't know the outcome, and therefore that still means that things are possible. And I love that so much. And there was just this one part of the book that stood out, or one of many, but you were talking about a couple that had a child, and you were saying that your friend was talking to her child about like just talking to her regularly about the climate crisis, and that how it's going to be, how we have hurt the earth, how we have damaged the earth, and that healing the earth and that's going to be a part of her work in her life as this little one grows up. That part of her, the a way, part of her engaging in the world will be to help heal the earth and help heal these places that have been broken by the way that we've been living. And that it wasn't, and that her husband kind of, had a bit of, or her partner had a bit of a difficult time with that, and she responded to her partner kind of, something like around that it's not that I'm trying to give our daughter kind of a sense of doom and gloom, but just really wanting her to really be getting that from a young age, that this is going to be a part of her life, and that helping to heal the earth is going to be, really front and center. And so that's not going to be a surprise to her at any point. And that just really, that really resonates for me. And I think that's kind of like similar to that piece around like that opening the door of possibility, that yes, sometimes the uncertainty does, or, maybe our negativity bias leads us directly into that place of doom and gloom. And at the same time, it can be that, oh, well, if we open that door of the unknown into possibility, this can be a choice of walking into, creating more healing for ourselves and for our communities. And I just love that. I love that story so much.
One of the things that's funny about that is that the other thing that I loved about your book is the bit, and I tried to find it again this morning and I couldn't, but it's the bit about how in the kind of planting and growing that you do, there's a massive amount of, oh, does the land like this? Do the plants like that? I need to do something different next year. I need to add a little bit more nitrogen, or I need to water a little less. Getting information from the world and being responsive to that information in time, without the certainty that it's going to work. There isn't a guarantee. Not like dumping the same amount of chemical fertilizer onto the same plant at the same time every year. I think that's also just a really beautiful and thought and feeling provoking engagement with uncertainty, right here on your own land.
I want to build on this idea of uncertainty, because funny enough, yesterday I was listening to a podcast on the very topic. It's called The Hidden Brain, and it was an episode with Kate, I think her last name is Bowler, and she's a professor at Duke University, and she was kind of telling the story of her life, and part of that involved her husband developing cancer. And how she had identified uncertainty as a thread throughout her life, something she was deeply uncomfortable with. And in this time of, great need from her husband, she directed that uncertainty toward finding answers and looking for somewhere to direct that anger at. And she was talking about that as kind of developing a sense of control. And she liked how it felt, because it was like you can be angry at something and identify its fault here for causing the situation. It might not fix the situation, but that was the idea, is I need to find some way to fix the situation. So the idea of fixing a changing climate is something we hear a lot in this space. Solving climate change, solutions-based thinking. And so I'm wondering what you both think about that, especially as it comes to young people. I'm coming from an education background, and so that's where young people are nurtured and spend the majority of their time is in school and in education settings. And so how can we engage on this topic without